You are listening to the Mark Guzman Podcast Experience. Coming all the way from Venezuela, Dan Mills had a dream to open up his own kitchen. Mixing food and science, he established Tinker Kitchen. When it opens in April, Tinker Kitchen will provide customers with a unique set of tools and tech to make food you could never make in your own kitchen. Today, we talk with Dan to learn how he brought his dream to reality and how food and science can blend together for the perfect meal. So Dan, thank you for being on the podcast. I'm excited for this episode and to talk about your business, Tinker Kitchen. So welcome.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me here. I'm super excited also to talk about Tinker Kitchen.
Yeah, and so one thing that I do a poor job of doing on these podcasts is discussing the wine that we're tasting at the very end. And I know a lot of listeners like to hear a little bit about the wine, so I'm going to switch it up. We're going to start at the very beginning, and we are tasting a Bogle Vineyards Cab Sauvignon. And this one, I bought it at Trader Joe's for $8. Have you tried this wine before?
No, I haven't tried this one. It sounds great. Should we have a taste?
Yeah, let's give it a taste.
All right.
So I like this bottle because it's under $10 a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Most grocery stores, you can find it for about anywhere from $9, maybe $12 on the high side.
Mm-hmm.
But Trader Joe's has it for $8. And I found this wine a few years ago because I went on a mission looking for inexpensive wines under $10 or under $15 that should be priced much higher. And so I think this is a steal. How do you like it?
It's great.
Are you a big red wine drinker?
I drink occasionally. Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah.
But
what's your
do like some red wine.
Do you have a favorite type of wine?
I tend to like cabs or kind of full-bodied, like in your face wines.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a smooth cab. It's not a, really heavy in your face, but it's
good though. I like it.
It's good. Yeah. What's the term? Like table wine.
Uh-huh.
It's a really good table wine. Yeah. So let's get started. And you grew up in Venezuela, right?
I did, yeah.
And when did you come to America?
I came over in the 90s. I came for college. So I've been here for quite some time. I came to North Carolina, and then after that, I lived in Boston for a few years. And I've been in California for over 10 years now.
How do you like California?
Oh, it's very nice. Yeah. I mean, I think every place has its pros and cons. But I just, I love it here. Yeah, the weather is awesome.
How was it growing up in Venezuela?
It was great for me. We had, it was, I don't know, my childhood is filled with nostalgia, right? So I remember all the things that I used to do. We used to go to the beach, and I had my childhood friends and so on. Looking back, I mean, the country has had some really difficult times that started since before I left. But since after I left, it's been pretty bad. So I still keep in touch with friends and some family down there. It's lots of mixed feelings, I think, when I think about Venezuela.
Mm-hmm. How was the transition from Venezuela to North Carolina?
That was interesting. I didn't even go to an American school. I think a lot of kids who come to study in the U.S. went to an American school, but I went through the Venezuelan system. So it was quite a shock to come to study in the U.S. But I adapted. My English was pretty good back then. It was still kind of an issue in that for example, I couldn't get sarcasm. And so it was I would have the most bizarre conversations because somebody was making a joke and I was completely oblivious to what was happening in the room, even though I understood every single word.
So you took it like literally.
I took everything literally. So I remember I have a friend that joked that there was some summer when she says I became funny. which is when I kind of started to get how humor works. So so yeah, I mean it was a great experience coming to study in the US, and uh obviously I liked it enough that I stayed, and yeah, I was very lucky to be able to do so.
And what college did you go out? Did you
uh
go to in
I
North
I
Carolina?
came to study at Duke University,
Okay.
and I studied computer science with a minor in economics and Italian.
How do you like Duke? Good
Duke
school?
was awesome. Yeah, amazing that I was able to go. Really, yeah, I feel super lucky.
So now you majored in
Computer science was
computer
my
science.
major. Yeah,
And so before getting into Tinker Kitchen, you were in the tech industry, correct?
yeah, and I never really imagined I would be doing something other than tech. When so in Venezuela and the Venezuelan university system, you actually declare what you don't declare a major. You apply for a particular, I mean, the equivalent of a major, but you do so before you even go into college, and you don't switch.
Oh
So
wow.
so the whole idea of going to college and then exploring things was very novel to me. Um,
Now, is there a reason why that's the opposite way in Venezuela?
I don't know. It's just
That's just the
I'm
way it
sure there's
is.
some reason. Who knows? They copied the French system or something. I don't know. But anyway, so the whole idea of doing something like when I went into college, I thought I wanted to do computer science, and I went in like just thinking that before I even applied, because that was my mentality as I knew what I wanted to do, and that's how it works in Venezuela. And I just never imagined that I might, after graduating and working for some time in the tech industry, actually end up doing something completely different. Um, but here I am. Yeah. So yeah, I worked in tech after graduating.
What kind of tech did you work?
I did so. Um, there's a movement of programmers called open source, the open source movement. There are people who believe that the code that makes up computer programs, should be free and open. And I worked for companies that make open source software. So kind of a variety of companies. But at first I joined a startup, and we made like desktop software, like email client and that kind of stuff. And uh, then that company got acquired, and then I came over to California and I worked for Mozilla, the company that makes the
The
Firefox web
Firefox
browser.
Yeah.
So I'd say that the bulk of my time I spent at Mozilla, and I was a programmer, and then I was a product manager. So I did a switch. I switched my role, and then I briefly worked for Creative Commons, which
So,
does
so I assume
licensing.
as a programmer, you know how to code.
Yes, of course. Yes,
Yeah.
I know how to
And
code.
so, learning how to code, did you learn in Venezuela, or was that something that you learned when you came to college
I
here?
learned a little bit of programming in Venezuela on just on my own. We had some there was some instruction in school, but it was pretty basic. And then on my own, I just love computers, so I learned on my own what I could. But the bulk of it I learned in college.
Okay.
Yeah, especially in any kind of serious way. Yeah, it was in college.
Okay. So now you're at Mozilla, and at what point do you decide I'm done with the tech industry?
So it's funny because it wasn't a rejection of the tech industry. I still love tech. Um, it was just a passion for food and cooking gadgets. And I would say that passion started while, it started a long time ago, but it kind of, I guess, came into being in earnest during my time at Mozilla. Um, in particular, I was fascinated by the science behind cooking. Um, and it, but it wasn't until after I left Mozilla, actually, that I decided that my next thing would be a food thing. And even then, I didn't know if maybe I should do some kind of tech food thing or something else. I wanted to do something on my own, and I didn't really know what to do. I knew I loved food and cooking, And so there was a little bit of trial and error until this idea kind of coalesced into a thing.
So how did you come up with the name Tinker Kitchen?
So I have a friend who's really good at naming. And I'm just lucky to have him as a friend. It was his idea.
Okay, so you just went to him and said, "Hey,
I
I've
just
got
said,
this
"Hey, I
idea."
have this idea. I don't know what to call it," and he came up with like 20 names, and this was one of them. And this was the best, but they were all good, but this is the best.
Yeah, it's a really cool name. It's catchy and straight to the point, right?
Yeah, it's I feel like it really encapsulates what we're trying to do. And also there's no active trademark against it, and the SEO is good. So when I first registered it, there was nothing that came up really on Google for Tinker Kitchen. So yeah, it's funny, like picking a good name is not just about the name, it's like about all these other things, about trademarks and what comes up on Google and all these other things.
You hit a good point right there,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of business owners that will pick a name because they like the name,
Right.
or for some specific reason,
Right.
right? But they don't go further into researching.
Yeah, you need to do your research.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
SEO, if you're going to market in today's world, everything's online.
Right.
And if you're not marketing your business online,
Yeah, if you're actively competing with somebody else for the top spots on Google, then that's some business that you will lose.
yeah,
Because if somebody really wants to find you, of course they can still find you, but it just takes that extra bit of effort. So why not try to reduce it?
yeah, that's one problem with I know, like, the real estate industry that I'm in, is that every company has realty.
Yeah, and it's hard,
brokerage.
right? Because all the search
Exactly.
terms are like clustered around this small set of terms that everybody wants to use, right?
Exactly. And of
Yeah.
course, the big giants like Zillow, Trulia,
Right.
and Realtor.com are always in.
Are always at the top. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you bring up a good point with that. So, what's the concept behind Tinker Kitchen? What's this business idea that you wanted to develop around cooking?
So the main idea is to create a makerspace for food and cooking. So a makerspace is a place where you can go to make things. So we'll have lots of tools, and the facility is made for cooking, like a commercial kitchen. But unlike your home kitchen, we have lots of stuff that you don't have at home. Unlike a regular commercial kitchen, the bar is much lower for you to enter. You don't need to like sign some crazy contract and commit to, who knows what. And the hours are also really flexible. So as a member, you can kind of drop by anytime. And as long as there's space in the kitchen, you basically can just enter the kitchen and do your own thing. So it's applying. So there are maker spaces for other things, like woodworking or metalworking, or places with 3D printers or laser cutters, things like that. But there weren't any for cooking, and the idea was born out of I guess my own desire to have more cooking equipment. My fiance, who was my girlfriend at the time, was very nice and allowed me to expand the kitchen. So we had like a small galley kitchen, and I just wanted to have more stuff. And so we got like a temporary dance floor, like the kind that you can rent for parties, but you can buy it. Like it snaps into place, and it's like a hard floor.
Okay.
Because we had carpeting. And so we expanded the kitchen using this kind of temporary dance floor thing. We expanded the kitchen into the dining room, yeah. And so I put racks and tables, and so I had more kitchen space. But then even then, I just wanted more stuff, and I wanted more stuff that's heavier. Like I want like a nice oven and stuff that's not, it just wouldn't fit in there. And then I realized that, wow, like what if I created a space that had all this stuff? I was familiar with the makerspace concept as it existed for other things, but I didn't know of any for cooking. I had taken cooking classes a couple times. Like I took some cheese making classes that were super fun, but they're not spaces that you can come back to. And so I really wanted a space where I could just have all my cooking equipment and then kind of come back again and again and have fun with it. And so I decided that maybe this was a space in the market for me to create a new thing. So yeah, that's how it came into. That was the origin of the idea.
Okay, and then where are you guys located right now?
We are building out a space. We're in the Mission on 22nd Street, in the Mission in San Francisco.
Okay, and you're not quite open yet, are
We're
you?
not open yet. We are finishing up our construction. It'll be a few more months until
Okay.
we're all done. There's
So-
like a crazy number of things that need to happen.
Oh, I bet.
It's like
Especially
not
in
just
San
the
Francisco,
physical
right?
construction, but then there's like all these inspections and yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're getting there. We're closer.
Now, your space, people. Now, what's a membership look like? And I believe on the website you're looking to do classes there too, correct?
Yeah. So the way I see the business, the core of the business are the memberships. So I'm looking to create a community basically, and the core of that are members, people who come back, keep coming back to the space and meet each other and make friends and cook together. But because the space, it makes sense for us to also have classes, not just for members but also for outside people. And I see that from a business point of view, I see it as a funnel. So I imagine that many people will discover the space first as a place to take a cooking class. But then I hope that they will discover that actually if you become a member, you can come back and practice in the same environment that you took your cooking class in. You can keep learning. And then you can explore, other tools. And members will have discount to classes. So, maybe you can then take another class and learn something new.
Yeah, and those spaces are great to meet other people.
For
and
sure.
then collaborations happen.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm looking to provide the space and nurture a community to come into being. I've personally attended other cooking groups in the area, and those are super fun. But it's always hard because you have to find a space to meet. So some of the groups that I know, people rotate. They use their houses and they rotate between them. Or sometimes you find a space, but it's just tough. Yeah. So
renting out those big giant commercial kitchens are expensive.
It's pretty
too, right?
hard. Yeah, it's pretty hard. And the spaces that are dedicated as commercial kitchens, they tend to be very utilitarian. So there's nothing wrong with them, but they're not really made for cooking and hanging out. They're mostly just made for cooking. And so I think that we have is a pretty unique kind of space because we do have a very big kitchen, but we also have a nice hanging out area in the front that serves as dining or a place for people to just hang out and talk. And we're also centrally located. So most commercial kitchens tend to be a bit out of the way because they're chasing cheaper real estate prices and bigger warehouse type spaces. Whereas we're right in the we're in the middle of two BART stations, like walking distance. In the middle of the mission.
Very easy to get to.
Super easy to get to. Yeah.
Okay, that's very neat. So memberships. What are the memberships going to look like as far as cost?
Yeah,
How
memberships.
often can people show up?
I'm thinking there'll be around $125 per month, and they will come with anytime access, anytime that we're open and we're not closed for some event or something like that. And we'll be open 7 days a week, so people can pretty much just drop by whenever. They'll also come with a couple of guest passes because I want people to be able to have a dinner party. And so I think that
Like a dinner party at the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. Like you come, you bring a few of your friends, and you cook together, and then you have a meal, and
That's very cool.
that's super fun, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of when I imagine how I want to use it. That's how I want to use it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of my friends also would enjoy to have a space like that. So I'm looking, for how we can facilitate that, given that not everybody will be a member, of course. Only like a core group will be. And then we'll also have day passes. So day passes are obviously just valid for the day, and they'll be around $25. So you can think about it like a museum ticket, right? Which is around that.
Okay.
And it lets you come in. You can use all the equipment. There will be training required, of course, to use the equipment, but we'll provide that so that people can do whatever it is that they want to do.
And then what about the classes?
The classes, I spent a ton of time going back and forth on how I want to structure the classes. During the last couple of years, I've trialed classes on my own. Like I developed a few, and I think I'll continue to teach those. I'm not quite sure what the pricing is going to be around those. Probably in the $100 range. But then I want to open it up for other people to teach. And the way I think I want to do it is I actually just want to provide the platform for people to just advertise classes that they want to teach at the space. We'll have to work out, it has to be like we have to work out the logistics of the calendaring. But otherwise, I don't think they're all going to be like Tinker Kitchen in quotes, right? Like Tinker Kitchen classes. There'll be classes at Tinker Kitchen. And what that means is that I'm going to allow teachers to set their own pricing because different classes will have different pricing needs. Like if you're cooking like a fancy lobster pasta dinner, it's not the same as you're just making some basic bread. Like the ingredients are very different, right, in cost. So I want to allow for a big range in price differences.
So it's like making a technology reference. It's like Udemy.com. You're building the website and the platform, and then you're letting other people go on and then
I think about
their
it as
classes.
a platform. Yeah. So I will charge a fee per student to the teacher so that they know that they need to pass on this cost. It'll probably be something in the range of like the daily passes. And the fee will be smaller for members. I'm going to require them to pass along that discount so that I can guarantee members that they will have discounts on all classes.
Okay.
That's the plan.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm hoping that given this like really open model, we'll get a lot of interesting classes. That's what I hope. I have been kind of reaching out to potential teachers, and I think we're going to have some cool stuff lined up.
Yeah, very neat.
To do a Tinker Kitchen.
Now, is it just food being made? Are there going to be drinks also?
So we won't have a liquor license, so we can't do alcoholic drinks, but we can do other drinks. So, for example, I have a carbonation rig, so we can make our own sodas, things like that. Or we can make like kombucha or something. We can make other concoctions. So yeah, we'll do drinks also, and then some of the equipment that we'll have will be, I think, pretty unusual. So you'll be able to use it in particular for drinks. For example, we'll have a centrifuge, and centrifuges are really useful for making sodas because the centrifuge, so it's a spinning device, right?
Yeah.
And what it does is it allows you to use like gravity to get the sediment out of a liquid. And that's important because clarified liquid won't bubble up as much. Like you can put more gas in it and it won't fizz. When liquids have like particles in them, you try to put gas in them, then they fizz on their own. So it's harder to get gas into them.
Now, will people need to bring their own ingredients?
Yes, we will have some ingredients at the space, mostly specialty stuff like modernist powders or liquid nitrogen, things like that. But other than that, people do have to bring. We can help people with logistics though. So if somebody wants to say have their monthly food box delivered to our space, we can work with them to make that happen. Storage will be separate. Storage is unfortunately in short supply, so we'll have to figure out how we are going to ration that. If we're going to maybe just have a charge for dry goods or fridge space, so that we can make sure that anybody who really wants it is able to store something at the space.
Okay.
And then I will have to manage that. I'm working with the health department to make sure that it's going to be properly managed.
So are you having to get licensed as a restaurant?
Yes, actually. Is complex because as far as the planning department is concerned, I am not a restaurant. But as far as the health department is concerned, I'm essentially like a restaurant. So they're going to inspect me and permit me as a restaurant.
Wow, even with clients bringing in their own ingredients.
Yeah, well, they look at the different activities that we're doing separately and how they interplay. So, we've had meetings. I'm pretty open with them about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And it's true, it's very novel. So
So
I
there's a
think
lot
I'm
of
yeah I'm kind of an interesting
you're the case study for them.
case study. But I have to say that they've been very open about telling me how they think it should work and what the concerns are, and it hasn't all been fully decided, but we're working on it, and I'm confident that we can get to a good place. I think the more difficult things will be um, leaving things at the space that need like long-term processing, like pickling, like fermentation or meat curing, um, or yeah, these kinds of processes, or like cheese making. They're called specialized processes, and they're treated differently by the health department. So these we won't be able to do from the get-go. But I'm still working with the health department on making them happen. It's just there's a lot of paperwork and stuff that needs to happen
A
for
lot
them
of
to allow.
regulations, right?
Yeah, they make you create these things called HACCP plans, which is like a hazard control and prevention plan. And you need to just fully specify what you're doing and how you're making absolutely sure that it's always going to be safe. And so they just make you jump through a lot of hoops to make it happen. But it's not impossible, so I'm still working with them on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see like what's required to simply open up a restaurant, and now what you're trying to do is
Yeah.
probably 10 times as complicated.
Yeah, when I first started with the idea, I thought it'd be simple, and I think that if I had known then how much work it would be, I probably wouldn't have tried to do it. So maybe it's good that I was naive about it. But
Yeah, now you're in it. Now you're
now
stuck.
I'm in it. You're stuck. You have to do it.
So makerspaces, you briefly explained a little bit what a makerspace is. There's a lot of makerspaces also popping up for even tech businesses.
Yeah,
And you have these like, I think the one I see advertised all the time is WeWork, where
yeah.
they have various offices and you can rent offices. Very similar, same concept. Now, food hacking.
hmm
What's food hacking?
So food hacking, what I call food hacking is like a desire to experiment and learn by tinkering with food. Um, so the term hacking is used in tech. Um, there's kind of two meanings. There's the meaning that it usually gets in the media, which is like people like breaking into computers. But the way that is used in the tech industry is actually much more like tinkering. So it's this idea that, oh, like I'm hacking together something. It could be used as like it's kind of an ugly solution to something, but it could also be a beautiful solution to something. So it's all about the tinkering with the problem space to
So
do something interesting.
experimenting.
Yeah, experimenting and kind of playing around with it. And sometimes discovering something kind of beautiful and different and new. Um, and so I'm applying that term in that sense to cooking. So I think of food hacking as, really learning, going deep and understanding maybe the science or maybe, just how something works, and playing around with it physically and learning with it, learning how to work with the materials and the processes in that way.
What's been one of the most unique or interesting dishes that you've made?
Oh man. Hmm. So I was really fascinated by sous vide cooking, and it's still really interesting. Though now it's I guess I've used it enough that it's no longer so novel to me. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
I'm
sous
not.
vide cooking is you heat up a water bath to a very specific temperature, and there are machines that do this, and then you cook food. You put it in a plastic pouch, and then you submerge it in the water.
Okay.
And because the water is at that very specific temperature, then the food comes up to that temperature, and it obviously doesn't go any higher. So it allows you to very carefully control the temperature of a food that is cooking at. So if
So
you
the
think
food
of
is in
like,
a plastic bag?
yeah, so it doesn't get wet.
Okay.
So if you think of a steak, for example, which is like the classic example for sous vide, when you think of a medium rare steak, that actually corresponds to like 56 degrees Celsius or like 136 Fahrenheit, which is much lower than what a grill usually is at. So a grill is usually like, I don't know, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're usually cooking it for a set amount of time so that the center of it is at 56 Celsius, right? and then you have to take it out because otherwise it overcooks.
Mhm.
But if you have a water bath and the water bath is at 56 Celsius and you put the steak in, then it goes all the way up to 56 and then it stays at 56 because that's the temperature of the water bath. And so you can get a steak that is medium rare end to end. And then you take it out of the pouch and you sear it, and you can, then you have a perfectly cooked steak.
Wow.
So it allows you to, so it decouples time from temperature in this very mind-blowing way. So you want to have a steak, you want to have it be medium rare. Great, you put it in the water bath. You can cook it for an hour, you can cook it for 3 hours, and it'll still be medium rare. And then when it's done, you can, sear it and eat it. So restaurants use this technique for having a lot of, they want to have a lot of steaks. They have them all ready to go.
So that's
and then
how
they
they
can
do
very
it.
quickly. Well, not
Okay.
all restaurants do this. Steakhouses usually don't. But you can actually tell by looking at a steak if it was probably made with sous vide. There's something about the gradient of how the inside of the steak looks that if you know what it looks like, you can kind of spot them. You can also use it for, other interesting things. Just having that amount of precise temperature control can be pretty useful. So yeah, that has been an interesting experience, I think, to decouple time that way. But other things, I'm just fascinated by all food. So basically, I become obsessed by whatever it is that I'm learning about at the time. So I, learned chocolate, and then I became obsessed with chocolate, and then I learned pasta making, and pasta making is amazing. It's like such a tactile thing where you're like physically, like cutting or like working with the pasta. It's
I've seen
super fun.
videos of creating pasta from scratch. It's serious
Super
work.
fun, super fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a lot of work, though it sometimes is. Yeah, it depends on the recipe and the method that you use and the machine that you have. I have this awesome machine that extrudes pasta. So at one point, I was good enough at using it that I could actually make the pasta in just a little bit longer than it took than the time that it took like water to boil.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, at that point it was all set up and ready to go. So it kind of depends on what technique you're using and how you're going about it and the amount of prep that you do beforehand.
Now you mentioned chocolate, and I
Mhm.
believe you have a chocolate. What's chocolate tempering?
So chocolate tempering. So chocolate is actually a crystalline structure. So do you remember those experiments that you do in school where you put like you have like a jar with a solution, and then you put like a paper clip in, and then you get a crystal growing out of it?
Okay, I've seen that. I never did that in my.
Okay, so
in my
if you
school
have,
time.
and depending on what you put in, you can actually get different crystals to grow out. And that's because crystals tend to copy each other. So once you get one crystal, you get more that look like it, and they connect, kind of like Legos.
Okay.
Okay, so chocolate is sugar crystals and fat crystals, and the chocolate that we like. So these molecules can fit in a few different ways. There's a few different crystals that can form. There's like, I think it's like 6 or 7 kinds, but we like one specific configuration of them. There's one specific crystal shape that we like. That's the one that gives you the nice snap. They all have different melting temperatures. So we like a particular one. So tempering is the technique and sometimes art of getting this perfect configuration of the same crystal repeated all over. If you ever leave a chocolate bar in the car and it gets warm, and then you come back to it, and even though it has like re-solidified, is now like kind of white and gross looking, and it's now kind of mushy. Some people say, oh, it's moldy. It's actually not moldy. It's just it has lost its temper.
Okay.
So now you have a bunch of different crystal shapes. They no longer fit neatly. They no longer stack neatly because you have different kinds of crystals. They're, some are bigger, some are smaller. So they don't fit in a compact shape anymore. So that's why it's mushy. And the white stuff is usually either fat or sugar that has come to the surface of the chocolate. So if you go out to some fancy chocolate place, like a few weeks ago, I visited a fancy chocolate place that I will not mention, and then I noticed that their chocolates had like little bands on them, and that immediately tells you is not to temper, is not correctly tempered.
Oh, so
you
they
can
had-
spot it. Yes, you can
They had
spot
faulty
it.
chocolate.
They had faulty chocolates. Yeah. So now I can spot these things, and I know exactly what happened. So yeah, chocolate is a crazy rabbit hole. There's so much to learn about chocolate. Yeah, but tempering. So I have a couple of tempering machines. So tempering can be done by hand. You can do it on a marble slab. Um,
What's the process look like? What do you do?
with the marble slab process, you're melting chocolate and then you're pouring it and then you're mixing it to lower the temperature at a certain rate, and then sometimes you're mixing it with some chocolate chips. So the basic idea is kind of like that jar experiment. If you take some melted chocolate, so melted chocolate, all the molecules are not bound as crystals; they're just kind of floating around. But then you introduce some good tempered chocolate. The tempered chocolate has the correct crystal shapes, and then all of the melted chocolate kind of starts copying those shapes.
Okay.
And so that's how you get,
And then it attaches itself, and then
you
forms.
get good
Okay.
tempered chocolate. Yeah. So what the machine does is it sort of automates this process, and it beeps for put good chocolate behind the machine, and then it kind of does the right thing.
It's amazing all the science that goes behind food.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam and I yesterday were just we were over at Admiral Malting in Alameda, and they make malt for beer making, right?
Right.
The entire science is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, the simple ingredient, but the amount of science that goes into it, and then now, I mean, chocolate. I mean, it just blows my mind. how
It's
much
in
science-
everything, really. Like the other day, I was talking to we were talking with some friends about Taco Bell, and I remember I read this
Are you
article.
gonna tell us that Taco Bell's full
They
science?
have an amazing food science team. Like you have no idea. These people are pros, like top-notch pros. And yeah, like I was reading this article about them, like when they came up with this like cheese-filled taco shell, and like the number of years that they spent like working on the formula for the cheese and the crust, so that they could get like the perfect thin cheese-filled shell that would be melty but like properly light and everything.
Wow.
It's just an amazing amount of work. Yeah, like they have like chemists and food science experts full time working on this.
I would imagine if Taco Bell has that, McDonald's, Burger King,
Yeah, all the
these-
big companies. Yeah, even smaller companies do. So I have a friend who's a food scientist, and he freelances for smaller brands. So people who, maybe they already have something on the market, or maybe they're looking to put something on the market, and you wouldn't believe the number of things that you need to worry about, because you need to worry about shelf life and how it tastes across the shelf life, and how it tastes with different people, maybe, or after it has been in different temperatures, because maybe you plan to put it on a truck, or maybe you have a formula right now that requires refrigeration, but you'd like for it to not require refrigeration.
and also cost.
And so it's so many things to worry about. Yeah, it's quite a science and an art.
Wow, that's amazing. So, is there a simple dish you can share with us, like an appetizer or even a dessert, that's something that catches your eyes, one of your favorites?
Oh man, I don't know. I have so many favorites. I mean, I do love making a steak sous vide, like I said before. Actually, one of my favorite fancy things to do is some lobster pasta, and I make the lobster sous vide. And the nice thing is that I usually prepare the lobster beforehand, so I will buy like lobster tails, and I quickly blanch them. You dunk them in hot water, and then I cut them open, and I pack the still raw tail with butter and salt, and I freeze it. And then at some later time, when I'm like, oh, it's time, we need to have a fancy dinner, then so when the occasion arises, I can cook the lobster tail sous vide.
What's the perfect water temperature for that?
I think lobster tail, I think it's like 59.5 Celsius. I think that's the Thomas Keller temperature, if I remember right, and he's right about this. It's delicious. And I make the fresh pasta, and then I almost don't do anything else. It's fresh pasta, and then you just boil it, and then you quickly toss it with the liquid that the lobster tail was cooking in, just like the butter and a bit of salty water from the bag. And then, yeah, maybe like a little bit of garlic or something, and that's it. And just toss the pasta and put the lobster tail on top, and it's like super fancy, and it actually doesn't take any time at all. So I love to do that and impress people.
That sounds delicious. I haven't had lobster in a long time.
It's great. We buy the lobster tails at Costco. Totally affordable. Yeah,
Yeah.
when I guess when it's in season, I don't buy it all the time. But
Now, do you have a favorite machine that you have
that's
over?
hard. My favorite machine changes like every.
You know what's funny?
time I
Just
have a
hearing
new
you
one.
talk about this, I have a feeling that your fiance is gonna have to drag you out of this kitchen every day.
Probably. So that's part of why we moved. So when we rented the space in the Mission, we then moved to the Mission. So now we live a block away from the space. In part because we knew that I would be working there late, and so she felt that if we were gonna see each other, it was gonna be much more convenient if we were close. But favorite machine, oh man, that's such a tough one. They're all my
I mean,
babies.
the centrifuge sounds awesome.
The centrifuge is pretty cool, but it's a little limited in what you can do with it. Awesome machine though. The latest one I got is by this chef called Dave Arnold. He has a company called Booker and Dax, and they've been making some hardware for kind of sciencey things, and they just made the centrifuge that I got, and it's an amazing machine. Like it's just mind-blowingly cool. It has so many little details, but you can really clarify. You can make butter with it. You can make a few things like that. I really love my pasta machine. Pasta machine is pretty nice, even though it's just a simple. I mean, it's a monster. It's huge, but it's just extruding pasta. That's all it's doing. But the dies are, because it's a commercial machine, it's built like a tank, and then the dies are made of bronze, and they're gorgeous. They're all hand machined in Italy, and they have some that have Teflon inserts to get smooth pasta, and some are just raw bronze, and then that gives you that kind of more coarse. Like, do you know when you go to the supermarket and you see the dried pasta, it's a little like white?
Yeah.
It's usually like the fancy brands. So those are extruded using only brass only dies, and that gives you a rougher texture, and the rougher texture allows for sauce to stick to it better.
Okay.
So it gives you just different mouthfeel. And then some of the dies that I have are just gorgeous. Like the one that makes there's the campanelle. It's like a bell shape.
Okay.
And it's really cool to look at it because it's it's flat, and then when the pasta comes out of it, it's engineered such that it curls as it's coming out. So they come out like little flowers, and then you cut them and you get little bell shapes. So
That's pretty neat.
that's pretty fun to use. Yeah.
Okay. And what's a combi oven?
I'm so looking forward to having a Combi oven. You have no idea. That was the machine that when I thought, wow, I really want to have this thing, I need to figure out how to make it so that my life has one of these in it. So a Combi oven is, so you know the difference between a regular and a convection oven is it has a fan, right?
Yep.
So a Combi oven is one more step. So it has convection, but also it controls the humidity. So it has steam injectors, and you can control the humidity inside. So that lets you do a whole new range of things. You can steam food. You just set it to 100% humidity. You can steam food, but then you can control it throughout. So you can do things like maybe steam for a little while, or maybe cook at half humidity, and then dry it out at the end. So you can preserve. Like by raising the humidity of the chamber, you can keep food juicy, but then at the very end, you may put it in convection mode and just crisp it up, so it crisps up the outside, for example.
Oh, that sounds good. I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like it could be any kind of food, and
it's all kinds of stuff. Yeah, or you can use it, very effectively. They're very good convection ovens also, so you can use it for like pastries. And because they have steam, then they're also really good for bread. Because bread requires, well, it depends on the bread you're making, but often they're better with some steam in the beginning of the cooking process. It gives you a much nicer crust on the bread.
Now, do a lot of restaurants have that type of oven?
No, Combi ovens are really expensive. So it depends where so the brand I'm getting is like the Rolls Royce of Combi ovens is Rational. I don't know if they invented the technology, but they're like the one to get. and they're made in Germany. Or well, the brand is German. And there are some American brands also, and they're here and there, but often they don't have quite the same level of steam control. So restaurants may get, it depends what they got. Most restaurants, I think they don't have a combi oven, but they're not super rare. So if you are paying attention, you will see them here and there. Sometimes I walk into a restaurant and I'm like really excited that they have it's like, oh wow, they have a combi oven, or they have a some other machine that I really like.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to having a wok stove, because wok stoves are like jet engines. So like a home stove is maybe like 4,000 to 6,000 BTUs, and a commercial range will have maybe like 30,000 BTU, and a wok stove is over 100,000 BTU.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so you get like insane temperature recovery. So you put food in and it immediately is back at temperature. So that gives you a really different taste for your food. So woks, they heat up so fast that they don't give the food enough time for water to come out. So most times when you're cooking food, actually they're floating on a little layer of steam, because when you put food on a pan, then they actually release some water, and then the pan is actually heating the water, and that's why it takes a little bit of time for food to brown. Is because for a while you're actually just getting rid of the steam, you're getting rid of the water until they actually get into contact.
If you
then
look
it starts
closely,
browning.
you can definitely see it.
Yeah. But in a wok, it recovers, the temperature recovers so fast that it doesn't give the water enough time to come out, so you get immediate browning. Which is why food made like if you go to a Chinese restaurant, like Chinese restaurant food will never be the same as even if you're a super great cook, you cannot do it at home.
Is it because they use that type of?
Because they use wok stoves. Yeah, for wok fried food, the restaurant is always going to win. So I'm really looking forward to playing this.
So it keeps all the water and the flavors
inside the food. Yeah, it doesn't give it enough time to come out, and it starts browning the food before any of the water has come out.
Okay, when are you opening up?
Yeah, hopefully in a few months. Yeah, looking to open in probably April. We joke, me and my fiance always joke that we're always 2 months away because there's so much regulation and stuff that is kind of outside of my control, that I'm always optimistic about. It's always 2 months away, but it's been 2 months away for a while. But we are getting pretty close now. We're now finishing up the floor, and after we finish the floor, we're gonna install the equipment. A lot of it is already at the space, all the big stuff. Everything except my Combi oven actually is already at the space. And yeah, after that, we need to get gas installed from PG&E, but that's in the works. And yeah, after that is all kind of cosmetic and inspection stuff.
So what would be a lot of fun to do is a cooking show down the road.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. I think the low bar is I definitely want to have at least a little station set up with like good lighting for people to take photos of food, because I think that would be really fun.
Yeah.
And people love to post, on Instagram.
Especially when they're able to cook it, and that's great advertisement for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I'd love for people to be able to do a cooking show out of the space. We could also do competitions. We can just have fun.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the space to be a playground.
How many square feet is this place?
Space is about 1,700 square feet. And it's divided into, so the front of the space is like the hangout dining area. And then there's the kitchen, but it's actually open. Like there's no barriers between the hangout space and the kitchen. And in the back of the space, we have like a storage room and a bathroom. So it's pretty simple. It's mostly open. So it feels pretty big. And it has really tall ceilings. So it has like 16-foot ceilings. And it has a huge skylight in the center. So it's nice and bright during the day.
Well, I'm excited for you. I mean, what are the future plans? I know right now you're just trying to get up and running.
Yeah.
But where do you see Tinker Kitchen in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so I hope that this one is successful and that we'll have lots of members join. And then I think in the first year, a lot of my task is to figure out which parts of the business model really make sense and which ones people don't care for. So, hopefully a lot of members, and then, some people want to teach classes and do other things. We could also do pop-ups, for example, um, or depending on me working it out with the planning and health department, we might also be able to allow people to do small batches of food production for people who kind of want to go into the business and are looking to do R&D and then maybe do a little bit of food production before they graduate to a bigger commercial space. So these are all kind of possibilities for the space. But then, if it goes well, then I'd love to open more. And I can imagine that, in large urban areas in the U.S., like this is a great model. I think it's great in all kinds of ways. Like it's great for community building. It's great as a use of resources because you don't need to have a huge kitchen in your apartment if you have a great shared kitchen that you have access to.
1 or 2 blocks away.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can, I'm really hopeful that this takes off and that we'll be able to open more in other places. I think rural areas is much harder, but for certain in the urban areas, if the model works, I think it should work in many cities in the U.S. And then after that, there's the world.
Yeah. Well, good luck with it. Thank you for being on the podcast. And what's the website for people to go look at?
Tinkerkitchen.org.
Perfect. We'll go ahead, link it up. Let us know when you're open, and we'll go ahead and make an announcement for you guys. Congratulations on this. This seems like an amazing journey, amazing business, and wish you the best.
Oh, thank you so much. It's super exciting to be here, and I hope to host you guys. Once we're open, we can have a little party or something.
Yeah, we'd love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at markguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.